too.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate
Oh
from the
boy,
National
finally got a
Constitution
little
Center right
commercial
here
break
in
here.
Philadelphia.
My
Back
goodness.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm like, who paid for the air now?
Yeah, yeah,
ABC News
yeah.
presidential
that
debate
they
will
went
continue
an hour
after
straight.
this.
Is that right?
It's only two commercials.
They went. Yeah, they went an hour.
hmm
Oh,
Yeah.
they actually
This
threw a
year,
couple
C-SPAN
commercials.
celebrates
So can
45
you
years of
reduce
covering
the
Congress
volume
like
during
no
the
other.
commercial
Since
at all?
1979.
Thank you, John.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Walter, what's your assessment? What you've seen so far?
My assessment is that it's pretty obvious about the who has the ability to think about what they need to do, what needs to be done, how to structure things, how to put in place programs. She manages, even when he's able to bait her, to stick to the points and talk about the topics with specificity. Where he goes off on crazy tangents like eating cats and dogs in the streets and things like that. I just wish she could throw a little bit more in there about what the press has managed to avoid since Biden dropped out. The fact that he's 80, there's a good chance one, he could wind up in jail, or two, he could die, and then Vance winds up being our president.
I'm thinking that some of what we would have been trying to get her to attack him more personally. I know that would have been one of the things I would have tried to get her to do during this, and I suspect that her handlers are, really trying to keep her in that lane because they don't want her to be too aggressive because when women are viewed as too aggressive, white guys tend to take it as an offense. And so she's playing to all these different audiences. But I got to say, it seems like she started out a little nervous, but really got her stride. And she's debating. She's hitting her points. Each time she spoke, she had 3 examples. She didn't go to 4 or 5 or 6.
No,
she wasn't rambling. She stopped on time. It seems like she's really did a good job in preparing this, and she sounds like she was a debater.
Exactly. That's about what I was about to say, John. She just didn't lose track of what the what the point was that was made, or the claim was made, and the rebuttal, with specificity, to that. She didn't allow him to throw her off base with, the personal attacks and things like that. Yeah. Hopefully she will, though. Hopefully within the next half an hour as she builds, she gets to throw a few more, like snide.
A little red meat our way, right? Like, a little more red meat our way.
Yeah,
he's throwing mad red meat to his people. We're not getting as much. We're getting dignity.
It is. And there's some things that, you can, you can, talk about. I'm glad, I wasn't going to listen. I'm glad I did. I saw a couple of things. I think I'm going to try to send some things into her campaign in terms of talking about kind of specific things about, how a lot of he talks about these cartels and things like that, but they come in, they're setting up a lot of times on what they view as the fringes of the Black community and things like that, where they places where they think they can get away with crime and not be prosecuted. In the same way, I think she could probably use a bit of that in there, because I know coming from California, she dealt with that a lot. Those criminal organizations that come in and set up in places where they think they can prey on people, to sell drugs and what. Yeah.
John, you got to tell us a little bit about Walter's history. with the debate. I mean, just a short, quick one,
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
I'm
Walter's a
so
beast, right? Let
curious
me
to
tell
know
you.
more about
So
Walter, so please.
Walter was one of the fastest, sharpest, smartest, most wicked debaters Howard's ever had, right? And Walter would sort of go between partners. Sometimes he was Aziz and others, but he was kind of like busy. So he didn't take. He was on the team, a beast, and would almost kind of like you use him as an attack dog. As a coach, I would, I know Albert would like, okay, we want to put this team against that team. So when we were doing matchups, Walter was always one that would win when we did the matchups because we had
That's
varsity
funny.
teams.
Yeah.
You did. We had
No,
these
but it's
varsity
funny
teams.
because John, I packed up my gear once, and I knew you and I forgot who your part. Sterling had won. I packed up my gear, and then they called my name, and
They
I'm like,
call
"Oh
that's
my
right.
God,
That's
what
right.
the hell?"
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. No,
and I was,
Walter was a beast.
yeah,
And Mario Walter selected me as a campaign manager when he ran for the
you're
Houston
right.
president, and at the same time we had a slate where every office damn near across the entire school were somehow connected to the debate team. And then what that did, it allowed us to have an agenda that I think is unmatched in terms of the kind of people that we brought in. We had, we had Medgar Evers' wife. We had Malcolm X's wife, Martin Luther King's wife. We had women forums. We had Toni Morrison. We had so much focusing on Black women that year, and that was in the that was in the early '80s. We were focused on Pan Africanism. We had the homecomings were about Ujima and Umoja. We brought in Peter Tosh and Black Uhuru as the groups. We could have gone in the pop direction, but we stayed true to the sort of the cultural milieu and the message that we were trying to convey to the student body. And I believe that had an impact on Kamala. She ran for office that year
We did
and
have
won
Cheryl
like the rest
Lynn
of us
and,
did.
Now we did have Cheryl Lynn and Donald Byrd though.
We
and
did.
that same that
Well, Donald Byrd was like a member of fine arts. I mean, he was an instructor at the School of Fine Arts, and so
But you did a lot. John did a great deal of having very broad appeal with the way he managed the campaign. That was a lot. I do remember having to do a hell of a lot of work to reduce the budget for things he did, like homecoming.
I was spending some serious money for homecoming.
He was. Yeah.
You gotta remember, we brought in Gil Scott Heron and Bobby Seals.
Oh, that's right. Gil Scott,
you're
Bobby
right.
Seals, right.
Bobby Seals and
Gil Scott Heron,
Farrakhan and
Farrakhan. We also had the president of Tutu. Bishop Tutu.
Well, did we bring in a couple African presidents too?
Well, we met with Robert Mugabe. We had lunch with
Robert Mugabe. Excuse me, that's who it was. It was Robert Mugabe.
Yeah,
right.
I think one of the interesting things that we did too was
she was there, with Robert Mugabe. Go ahead.
We had when we took over UOB and managed to get the whole budget that year. We had everybody from all the different schools and the Hilltop come to us every time they wanted to spend a penny. They had to submit.
You're right. You're right. It was, but you know what though, man? I thought after that, Greg, I saw how a lot of the student organizations ran after that, how they put their programs together, how they did their homecomings and things like that. I thought we provided we did a lot of stuff that we did right and we did wrong too, but we provided a really good blueprint.
At the beginning of the year, I don't know if you guys remember, we had George Jefferson come in and do that leadership training.
You had him right. We had him come in to help us. We had him from a business perspective, how to organize. You're right. You're right. We did that during the summertime before we started being engaged.
Yep.
thing.
That's right.
But yeah,
right.
no, that was
But I think
you know,
the interesting part about our campaign is that we made all of those political
excuse me.
campaign posters by hand with
You
red, black, and green markers.
did you drive up to wait a minute, did you drive up right? Remember I had my mother, she was an artist.
Yes.
Remember the ones that I had her
Right. We
do?
went up to Atlantic City and she hooked us
Yeah.
up.
And she did all of those posters and we hung them from the ceiling in those buildings so they couldn't
Right.
take them down.
Right.
Right.
But that was, wait a
That's
minute,
great.
do you all
That's
remember
great.
this one? And I don't even know if I should say this. On the day of the election, the Hilltop published the paper saying the other candidate was the favorite.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we went around and we picked up papers
Yes.
and we did what we did with them
Yo,
so that they never saw them until
we
after
destroyed
the
papers,
election.
and Omari and I went into the Hilltop offices.
Right.
Yeah.
Fighting with
Well,
the
you know what?
hilltop.
And I
Ladies and
found,
gentlemen, historic. Fighting with the hilltop.
yes.
Yes,
And
we did.
I found that particular issue, Walter. I have a PDF right now.
You found it?
The Hilltop, yes.
Oh wow!
Look, okay, well, I guess it's in a safe space. Remember, we took and we were all we were panicking, and I said, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we just like move the papers under the stairwell
Right.
or something like that? So it'll take them a little bit
Mario.
longer.
Oh, shit.
Mario, we had a relationship with the printer.
Right.
And because we had to pay the invoices for the Hilltop, so we knew where the papers were printed.
Oh man,
They told us when they would be delivered.
that was
We did all kind of
hilarious.
stuff.
That was, I mean,
God.
it's funny it's really funny
Oh
when
my
you think
God.
about it. But man, look, we all got I was telling Sharon earlier. I would say, you know what, man, some of these people they all do the distance learning, but they don't get what they miss in terms of like debate teams and student government. The different kind of learning activities you get from doing that, man.
That's right. That is.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't because when you think about it, a few $100,000 right now doesn't seem like much back then. But back then, that was that was a little bit of money. And then I think we would have first want to start doing those international concerts and whatnot from the people from different especially the Caribbean or the African artists and whatnot. Yeah.
Hey, Jay.
Ladies and gentlemen, just want to remind everyone that this broadcast is actually something that was organized by the HU3. It's featuring Howard University attendees and graduates. We have John Davis, who is the former coach. We have Walter Woods, who was also a member, and Omari Bakari. Right now, the debate is going into its final 15 minutes. So I think we might say back over. But I want to remind everyone that at the end of the debate, we actually have the opportunity to extend the broadcast as long as we want, so that if John and Walter and Omari want to continue a conversation, we certainly will be able.
Woman, now put John back on there though. I want to see if John still has the waves, the amount of waves, the amount of waves that I remember.
I got it.
From back in the all right.
I still got them.
Okay.
They're a little thinner, but
They're
they're
thinner
still
now.
there.
And look, John, I stopped doing my fade anymore. I'm afraid to cut hair anymore, man. I just let it grow now.
I feel you, brother.
Yeah.
No,
All
man,
right,
and let's go ahead and listen in.
All
on
right.
these last few
You
minutes.
guys are funny though.
All right.
But man, that's wonderful. That is wonderful.
All right. You guys getting the volume on that?
$300 million
There you go.
a day.
Good.
We were
We're
paying
good.
for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker.
That's
Even
a good
his
thing.
national
She's calling
security
him weak.
advisor
That
said
gets under
it was
his
a
skin.
weak,
He's
terrible
used
deal.
that
And here's how
phrase
it went
many
down.
times.
He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it.
Another lie.
The agreement said you have to do this,
He
and
said
they didn't
85
do
billion?
it. They didn't
Yes,
do
he
it.
did.
The agreement
Most documented
was
by
terminated
history
by
of
us
mankind.
because they didn't do
sorry?
what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
and
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this
Here,
country.
look.
Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
Nail his
I
ass.
think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who
Call him
has
a racist.
consistently, over the course of his career,
Been a racist.
attempted to use race to divide the American people.
Just say
You know,
the
I
word.
do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in
Yeah,
common than
please,
what separates
say-
us, and we don't want
Say
this
the
kind
word,
of approach
Kamala.
that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land, he owned land, he owned
Slumlord.
buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times
Yep.
calling for the execution
The execution of those
5
brothers.
young
They were
black
innocent,
and
too.
Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park Five.
Yes, there you go.
Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution.
As a private
This is the
citizen,
same
he did that.
individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want
Call him a
better than
racist.
that.
Say it.
Want better than this. Want someone
They
who
want better
understands,
than
as
a
I do, I
racist
travel
as
our
a president.
country. We see in each other
That becomes
a
the news
friend.
tomorrow.
We see
Make
in
it.
each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said.
Black.
Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is.
That's all his supporters need to hear.
Their oil policies, every single policy.
That's all they gotta
remember
hear.
this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst
50 years ago,
inflation
what
we've
was
ever
she,
had.
like
A
6?
horrible economy because
Yeah.
inflation has made it so bad,
6,
and she can't get away with that.
8,
Time is
8.
up.
I want
Yeah.
to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what
Good.
is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to
This is good.
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our
Good.
plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan.